Fellow vets, if you're making one of these three mistakes, I promise you're sitting there underrated. I'm going to show you what the top three mistakes are that we are making as veterans when we file our VA disability claims. And more importantly, I'm going to show you how to avoid or undo them so that, hey, here in 3 months, you can have a supplemental claim won and actually get approved for what you've been denied for previously in the past, okay? I see these mistakes over and over again, especially wait for number one, because if it applies to you, again, you have been leaving cash on the table every single month. I'm Jordan Anderson, VA Claims Academy. By the way, if you like this type of value that respects your time, please hit that like button. It takes 2 seconds, it's completely free to you. And more importantly, share it with a fellow veteran who needs to hear the information, okay? So let's jump right into it with number three. The first thing that we have here, and I just got a call this morning from a gentleman named Tom who is suffering from this exact mistake. It is using a VSO. Let me briefly touch on his story. This was this morning. He used a VSO, okay, which is typically what most veterans do, and the VSO filed a suboptimal claim. And the VA ultimately should have still given him this claim, right? They should have still service-connected his back pain because he did have documentation in service. However, the VSO did not equip him with a properly optimized claim. More on that on number one. And the first thing the VSO, which of course, you don't get the rating that you want, the claim was no good. The first thing the VSO told him was, let's go to Washington. Let's go straight to Washington, meaning go to the Board of Veterans Appeals. That was in 2019. The poor guy is still having to deal with this initial claim that should have been approved the very first time if he would have just done what's over here at number one. So make sure you stick to the end of this video because it can literally save you years of time and likely years of stress off your life, okay? So going to a VSO, what is a VSO? Veteran Service Officer. These are individuals who will represent you. They're free. They will file your claim for you. They will have a power of attorney and give you strategy and do essentially most things for you. How amazing does that sound? Doesn't that sound great? Well, guess what? In reality, what this equivalates to is a mismatch of incentive. That's the best way to put it. A lot of VSOs are fantastic people. A lot of them really care about veterans. A lot of them, believe it or not, are volunteers. Here's why you should not opt for a VSO as your first choice, or really your second choice or third, okay? These people are incentivized. One, either maybe they're not getting paid at all, or two, they're getting paid through the US government with an accreditation status that they need to uphold, right? So a VSO is an accredited agent of the VA, meaning that they rely on the VA, keeping the VA happy in order to keep their accreditation status to stay in existence and keep the funding from the government flowing. So does that mean that they are beholden to you, the veteran, or are they beholden to the VA? In this incentivized structure, you are paying nothing because you are the product, okay? You are not the customer. You are not being served. If you hire a mercenary or someone else hires a mercenary just because they're fighting for you now, they are not loyal to you. They are loyal to whoever pays them the coin. And that goes the same for here. So many veterans get misled because you go through the transition assistance program and they tell you, oh, make sure you go with your free local VA representative and they'll file for you and all that. And then you wonder why you have to come back years later to pay someone to undo what was messed up, and the whole time you should have been making 4 figures extra per month. That is the cost of free, okay? I tell people it's kind of like a last thing on this. If you go for a major surgery, or you and a loved one goes for a major surgery, and you have a volunteer surgeon, hey, how you doing? I'm Marco. I'm your volunteer surgeon. Let's get this over with. It's like, hold up. That's really nice of you. You want to help out people, but I kind of want someone who this is their livelihood, this is their career. That's number three. I won't touch on that. I won't harp on that any longer. Let's go to number two. This is important. Again, make sure you stick around for number one because my goodness, I see that all the time. Number two, I'm going to call this, and this is interesting because I see this a lot. And in a perfect world, it would not be a problem. Let me explain what this is. Number two, optimism bias. Okay? Number two is optimism bias. This is a lot of veterans, they have gone through, hell and back, all right? They have gone to war for this country. They do anything for this country, and they think that this country would do anything for them. That is unfortunately where they go wrong, okay? And unfortunately, that's where a lot of the veterans get this feeling of betrayal. And look, they have never been quitters throughout their whole life. They have been resilient. They will charge, head first into firefights, and then they go and interface with the VA, feel betrayed, and they give up and they're discouraged. To me, that's one of the most sad things because it takes a lot for a veteran to give up. But what is the most cardinal sin throughout all of history? It's always the worst punishments were always reserved for traitors, right? People who have been betrayed. Because that is almost the worst type of feeling. When someone within your own camp or who you think is on your side, when they attack you, all of a sudden a man has no sense of retrieval. They cannot rest. That is what the worst feeling is. So when people have this optimism bias that, hey, my country's going to take great care of me, they have my best interests at heart, guess what? Reality has shown different, right? Let's just be honest. Reality has shown different. So what does this mean in a practical level and how to fix it? So number one is do not assume that the VA rater is going to go search for a doctor's notes from 1994 and read their chicken scratch and notice that, hey, you know what, your doctor did say that you're missing work a lot because of these debilitating migraines. Oh, that's the threshold for 50%. So rather than 30%, I'm going to give you 50 because of this note right here. Don't do that, okay? Make sure that you're bringing them the evidence. Spoon feed it to them. Tell them, hey, yes, and then I'm going to get to this in number one on how to do this. But yeah, by the way, I'm missing work, blah, blah, blah. Tell them what they need to hear in order to rate you highly. Don't rely on them doing their job well, okay? Do not have this bias where, hey, I think they're going to do their job well. I'm just going to let them handle a lot of it and fill in the gaps. No, maximize your voice. More on this on number one. So rather than optimism bias, guess what? For this process, I'm going to need you to be a little pessimistic because pessimism bias is closer to reality than optimism bias is in this specific instance. So I need you to have the thought process that I have every time I'm crafting a strategy for a client, every time I'm writing a bulletproof personal statement for a client. I'm thinking, okay, I'm one of 100 claims that this rater is doing today. How can I make this as easy as possible for them to give us a high rating? How can I help them help you, right? Help them help you. I'm going to imagine that they're falling half asleep. They got Cheeto dust on their fingers. They got smudged all over their monitor, hardly paying attention. They got a new tab playing World of Warcraft on the side. That's how you have to think of it. Pessimism bias. Be pessimistic. Okay, how could they mess me up? How could they, rip me off here? How do I already counterattack that? That's how you need to go into it because it keeps your claim airtight, okay? Make sure you cut them off and provide defenses where they're going to try to poke holes in your claim. That's the mindset you need to have. Let me go back to number 3 real quick here. How to fix that. Rather than going to a free VSO, thinking that the free is very alluring, guess what? It's not about price, it's about cost. What is the cost of free? All of a sudden, the cost of free outweighs the price savings that you think that you're getting. So rather than have a free VSO, you need to invest. Invest what? Guess what? Invest your time. Here's a clock. Or invest your dollars, or both, on getting the proper education that you need to file on your own. There is zero benefit to having someone else who is probably not as caring as you are about your own tax-free income for you and your family file for you with a power of attorney. That is just a point of failure. Make sure you invest your time here on YouTube for free, watching Combat Craig videos, quality videos, whatever, my videos, or invest your cash, okay, here at VA Claims Academy with the online boot camp with the fully pre-written personal statements and Nexus letter generic template, or both, to make sure that you do this the right way. Now let's go to number 1. Again, if you are finding value with this information, hit that like button, please, and share it with a fellow vet who needs it. This is the kicker, and this is going to make and save you so much cash. And I know my core audience is resoundingly saying this. Personal statements. Now, if you don't know about personal statements, now you do. Okay, make sure it's filled out on form 4138B, 4138 Bravo. Do not turn it in as a Word document. is going to get Dikembe Mutombo is going to get blocked immediately. Make sure you fill out a personal statement for each and every claim. This is the biggest mistake I see. Because again, going back to Tom here, the VSO didn't tell him at all that personal statements exist. I told him, after he told me this, I said, okay, Tom, can I ask you a question? I bet the VSO didn't tell you about personal statements, did they? He said, oh, no, they didn't. That's the thing. Why would you go ahead and we're going to go take this straight to Washington and fight for 5 or 6 years when you could have just had a reinforced optimal claim in the first place? Sure, that goes back to optimism bias. Should they probably have given him the back pain rating? Probably. He had the diagnosis in his records, but guess what? He didn't include a personal statement referring to his records. Hey, I had a back pain diagnosed in service because I jumped out of a plane and had this accident. See attached medical records. I still have these symptoms to this day. Thanks for your time. I guarantee you, if you would have had that personal statement, they would have given it to him. Now we're taking 5 years, waiting since 2019, it'll probably be more years, for this appeal process. Because we tried to go free, we had a little bit of optimism bias, and we did not know about personal statements. This was kind of an all 3 mistakes that ended up costing this guy who knows how much cash, okay? Now, I'm not picking on Tom because Tom is a representation of a lot of us, so I just want to make sure that we can all learn from this, and Tom is getting taken care of, don't you worry. We're going to absolutely get him taken care of. So not writing personal statements is a huge mistake because all of a sudden you are not giving yourself a voice in the process. You are allowing the VA themselves, the raters, to fill that in for you and make assumptions about you and about your life that, guess what, you probably don't want them making. So this is an open book test. The VA ratings process is open book. They tell you exactly how they're going to rate you. So things like, my personal statement template's fully pre-written, where it has the wordage needed in order to translate your true story into what the VA will actually take and how they rate you. That is hugely important. Every single condition, you need to know how you're rated for it and write a strategically worded personal statement that speaks to how they rate you. It's like the 5 love languages, right? You don't speak for how you want to hear things. You speak to what their language is. Just like when you're fishing, when you're trying to catch a big fish, you don't use cheeseburgers, because you like cheeseburgers. You use fish bait because that's what you're trying to get wants. So you need to think like what you're trying to get. Okay, does that make sense? You need to think on the other end. What's the opposite side? How are they receiving this? That is what you need to do in a presentation. So anytime you talk to the VA, you're presenting, you're not just telling. And we do this. All 3 of these mistakes equal our presentation. Okay, so number 1, we don't cheap out by using a VSO. Invest your time or invest cash or both. Do not try to, I'm going to save a couple weeks and have someone do it for me. You're going to be back and you're going to be trying to apply for an increase and you will never make the cash back that you lost. Okay. Number 2, again, optimism bias. Rather than, I'm going to be taken care of. I'm a veteran. I put in 20 years. I put in 30 years. They're going to give me 100% automatically. No one's taking care of you. No one cares about you and your family. That's reality. No one's looking out for you. Okay? So get that out of your mind right now. A little bit of pessimism bias goes a long way. Doesn't mean you have to be a negative person. You just have to, acknowledge this is reality. Hey, I'm going to play chess, not checkers, and I'm going to definitely win here. That's the reality. Number 1, this is the big one. Not having personal statements, the value of personal statements, each and every single condition. If you don't, you're going to get nickel and dime. 10% here, 10% there. I lost 20% here. And at the end of it, guess what? You're making all of a sudden 3-4 figures less per month, tax-free, every single month. You've seen the price of groceries. That is not good for the household. Fellow veterans, if this helped out, hit that like button, comment. What do you think about this? What is your experience with the VSO? Good or bad? Definitely let me know. And until then, cheers, vets, and God bless.